Good morning, NFL world. This is the NFL Insiders with my guests and my co hosts, Mr. Scott Churchson and Mr. O.B. Spencer. Uh, I just want to remind everybody to please go to the respective app stores of iOS and Android to download the Single app application. Remember that this show can also be seen across the Single channels on channels 249 and 250. Single also can be reached across Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Well, NFL playoffs, what we will say, the finals of every single conference are here. Oh my God. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have to start with the news that is shocking the world and probably taking attention from what the games are itself. And that's the possible retirement of Mr. Tom Brady. And the repercussions of that is can happen because now Mr. Aaron Rodgers has options where he can go. So, if you guys don't mind, let's look at that first, and then let's go to the game.
Sure.
So,
Obi, you want to start?
So I'll go first. This is my impression of what's happening with Tom Brady. First of all, up until 3 weeks ago, this man was playing until he was 45, and he turned. So I believe Tom Brady controls the Tom Brady narrative very well until yesterday. It was the first time he didn't have complete control over it. But I do believe he's retiring. If you ask me to place a bet on it, I'd place he is retiring. That being said, the reason I think he's retiring is, look, the one thing about Tom Brady, and we're going to get into this a little later, I promise, with another player, is that Tom Brady is the least commercially exposed mega player ever. Like, people like to compare him to Jordan, but Jordan's face was everywhere, advertising for everything. Tom Brady's part of, like, Subway with 17 other athletes. You know, Tom Brady isn't there. And I think Giselle said, look, buddy, Peyton isn't playing and has enough money to buy a team. And it's great that you have all the records, kid. But ownership is a lot better than playing. Do you want to be playing for Peyton, or do you want to have Peyton's nephew playing for you? And I think that when it comes to it, Tom Brady has everything in the world, but probably mega money. He's got lots of money. Giselle has mega money, but Tom Brady doesn't. And I think that Giselle looked at him and said, my years of earning big money are over. We now have to earn money with our brains, and we need to do that together. And it's time for you to get out of getting beaten up. And this family needs two breadwinners at home with their brains, not their bodies. And I think that's what's going on. Now, whether that means he has to retire this year or if they're going to come to an understanding of X number of years, I'm guessing as the way marriages work, they are coming to an agreement on what his last year is, whether it's this year, next year, or that 45th year. But that's what's happening at home. And I think the money for him is out of sports, because I don't think Tom Brady is the person who can do Baker Mayfield levels of commercials or even Peyton Manning level of commercials while he's working as a football player. So he has to get out to make that extra real money.
And that's, in this case, I've talked to you guys before about my belief about the Baker Mayfield commercials and what they do from a film perspective, you know, and how it distracts. Even the Gronk commercials, as often as Gronk does it, he's just basically doing a commercial where he's reading off a teleprompter just like this. You know, collects his check, he's gone in a few hours. Not bad. Tom Brady right now has accomplished pretty much everything he needed to. He showed that he did not rely on or need Bruce Belichick or Bill Belichick to, win a Super Bowl. He did it with Bruce Arians. You know, he showed the world that he still had enough in the tank to take a team that was struggling for years. He's immortal. And that man is immortalized, you know, in Tampa now in 2 years, you know. Now, what that does, we're going to cover what that's going to do for the NFC South next year. But he's got 3 kids, and you're probably right. You know, where it was probably a family decision where they're like, you've accomplished everything. What's the point at this point? You got 3 kids. You know, one of them is in high school at this point, the one with Bridget. So that case there, he can make a lot of, I mean, he has a very, very good Hollywood face. That dude can make bank on television and in commercials. He's got the face for it. So he could easily start doing commercials just like Peyton did. I mean, Drew Brees, as soon as he retired, bam, he was into Quaker Oats commercials and everything else. So in this case, yeah, I can totally see him doing that. Dear God in heaven, I can see them doing a reality show too. But that notwithstanding, yeah, he's accomplished everything he needed to. You know, it's one of those things that if this is the end, it surprises me because you'd almost expect him to have that farewell year, you know, that a lot of players do, but he chose not to. And that's all entirely his prerogative. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, he probably wants to spend more time with the family, you know, and be able to just have some level of stability for those kids and respect there. So what this does again for the NFC South, it's going to open up a lot of can of worms now. But anyway,
I'm going to add one other side to this. So I think, Scott, you and me, the major agreement amongst the major world is that off-field, this is an off-field decision. This is about him and his wife. I think there's some on-the-field stuff that we can look at too. If we really want to scrutinize and decide. I know going into the playoffs, my opinion was that Tom Brady is going to have one bad old man half at some point that's going to cost his team. And can the team recover and have a great Tom Brady second half? But even in the second half last week, they had 3 possessions that started in Rams territory, and they scored 3 touchdowns, but not on necessarily those 3 possessions, plus 2 that ended on downs. I don't think that was Tom Brady's greatest comeback performance to begin with. I think that the game could have gone out of hand the other way, and Tom Brady didn't necessarily deliver. And I know a lot of people talk about, oh, who's hurt, who's not hurt on that team. But in the past, he's done it with nobody, and now he needs a lot of people. So he might also be looking at, how's my body, and am I really that Tom Brady guy that people expect?
You know, but here's the other side of it too. I mean, Matt Stafford threw for 366 yards. That is a defense glitch there. I mean, you still, at the end of the day, I mean, he still did. I mean, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he still had a completion rate of about 57%, 329, you know, passing yards. Not Tom Brady level, but enough that you can win with that kind of thing. The issue is the fact that they gave up 428 yards overall. You know, I think that's the biggest thing.
I think that what I'm saying is, in terms of that game, yes. But in terms of his stat line and how many more teams have figured out that they're just going to rush score at him, nobody blitzes him anymore. Like, the book is out on him now. Can you put a team together to beat him? It's always been the question. But I wonder how much he's looking and going, that pass that I threw used to be on target. That, I mean, his average yards per completion has gone up from where it started dropping the last 3 years he was in New England. It jumped up and it came down again while in Tampa Bay. I don't know if that's the Bruce Arians offense or not. I tried to look for statistics that said, oh, look what happened under Bruce Arians for people, or when Bruce Arians left in Pittsburgh. I couldn't prove it, so that's an eye test, not a stat test, that the Bruce Arians offense is going to get you more yards per attempt because it's a bigger downfield offense. But that being said, if my eye test matches statistically, like Eduardo said, my goodness, how badly do you want to be Aaron Rodgers going down there? How badly does he want to get Aaron Rodgers down there? There's a guy who, as good Brady is, has always been a better deep ball thrower than Brady. The receiver issue could be a problem because you're going to lose Godwin most likely, but maybe you could bring in Devontae Adams. You bring in Adams and Rodgers and let them do it down there where there's some defense and offensive line. Of course, then Rodgers has no excuses, and I don't know how much Rodgers doesn't want to have any excuses.
You know, my take on this is I don't think, you know, and I'm sorry, Eduardo, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
All right. The only thing I would just say is this. I thought about it, but I don't see Aaron Rodgers necessarily going to Tampa on the simple grounds that he does not want to be Tom Brady's sloppy seconds. And I mean, while I think that team still has the potentiality to win, I don't think he's going to want to basically, you know, ride the coattails of Tom Brady. Now, if you're Tampa, you go after him anyway. You go after Aaron Rodgers just because of the fact it's Aaron Rodgers, you know, but I don't see him necessarily going to Tampa because of the fact that Tom Brady's already been there and done that.
Yeah, I think no matter where he goes, he is following in Tom Brady's footsteps because Peyton did it. Now Brady did it. Now he's doing like, look, this is something that Montana never accomplished. Let's talk about that. Montana did not do this. Montana went to Kansas City, didn't get it done. He came real close.
True.
But then we did see Manning do it. We saw Brady do it. So I think no matter where he goes, whatever the team is, we're reaching an NBA type level where the team doesn't matter. It's like we are kind of getting there. Where the NBA, it's like LeBron has done a new thing. This is LeBron's team over here. Then KD did it. Now I'm building a team over in Brooklyn. The uniform doesn't matter. It's just a semblance of guys. So yeah, I think we need to. I don't know if the team matters so much in terms of the perception. And I think the bigger thing that is preventing Aaron Rodgers is, unlike Brady, Aaron Rodgers is more in the Manning mode of I want to be able to do commercials and I want to do the work. I want to do the other work. Yeah. And I think that if going to Tampa isn't a place to do the other work. I think Tampa, as you've been saying for a while now, LA is more of a place to do the work, although I don't know there's a quarterback out there. New York, I think the Giants might be in one of the teams he might land with. I think he wants to go to the place where he can do the work and get the fame. I think that's more Aaron Rodgers. I think that when people talk about that is Aaron Rodgers, and Tampa doesn't necessarily have that.
So here, Ian Rappaport reported this morning that there were conversations between Green Bay and Rodgers again, and that Rodgers basically stayed after the loss. He stayed a couple of days in Green Bay and didn't depart for LA, which that surprised me in a certain way, because Rodgers is not the kind of guy that he wants to soak his own demise at home normally after a loss. But it surprised me that he stayed in Green Bay and he sat with the coach, he sat with front office and actually talked about what are our plans moving forward. And considering that could there be an Aaron Rodgers remaining in Green Bay if the terms are right? Because as we know, Green Bay needs to sign key players that are out of contract. Will they have the money to sign Rodgers as well?
You want to go first? Or you want me to?
I cannot fully put my finger on who Aaron Rodgers is and who the league sees Aaron Rodgers as. And I think Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to Pittsburgh. And I think not getting vaccinated, not being an anti-vaxxer, if that not the political side of it. I think the doing it hurt him going to Pittsburgh. I think that Tomlin is a total team first guy. I think Tomlin saw that action and said, I don't want this guy. And I think that is where he wanted to go. Scott, you were talking about sloppy seconds. Being Ben sloppy seconds and bringing Pittsburgh back up to the top is a different story. Yes, you did. Like I did it in Green Bay and I've done it. These are the two true blue collar NFL towns. I think Pittsburgh is done with him. I do think Tomlin's like, no, the guy who didn't get vaccinated is not a guy I want on my team. And so I think that died. And so he might stay in Green Bay because of that, because I don't know if either of the LA teams are going to take him. I don't know if the Giants are going to want to make that payment on him versus just try to rebuild. I don't know if the Jets are ready to give up on Wilson because you got that rookie contract to see if we can do what we can do in that window. So I don't know. So if Aaron Rodgers ends up staying in Green Bay, I won't be shocked. But if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, I'll be less shocked. Like I can't put my head into him like the way I feel I can read Tom Brady. I cannot read this guy at all. At all.
Yeah. I mean, my take is go ahead, please.
So what? Just before you talk, because I want to just say look at something that's Obi said, and one of the things that I don't see in Rodgers is being the guy like Tom Brady was, that he will take a guy in salary for his team. Brady was that type of a guy that he went to bat for he went to bat for Tampa Bay.
I need to take a screenshot of Obi right now.
Yeah, because that's a BS description of what happened to Tom Brady. That's one of the many Teflon Tom stories. They didn't pay him. They paid TB12, the company. But I digress. Tom Brady didn't take less to stay in New England. He arranged for them to pay him off the books. But I digress. Go on with your Tom Brady's wonderful story.
No, that's what I wanted to say. I mean, what he did in Tampa is different than what I don't see Aaron Rodgers, if he wants to stay in Green Bay, taking a cut so that they can sign other key players, because he feels that he is the team.
I don't know. I see him going west. I think at the end of the day, he's going to want to go. I'm going to throw another team into the mix here. I'm going to toss Vegas into this mix. Does Derek Carr move? It's always possible there too. That's I think in this case here, he wants to head. You mentioned Pittsburgh, and I understand that. I'm going to take Pittsburgh off the table here, but I think the 4 teams that we have to look at right now are Vegas, Denver, San Fran, and LA. And you know what? Just for the sake of fun, why not throw Seattle into the mix too? Just because of the fact that it's a big sports town that way. But I have to look at it from the perspective of he's going to want to go Hollywood when his career is over. So just like the conversation we had about Tom Brady, thinking about his future and everything like that. Remember, Aaron Rodgers has already hosted Jeopardy. He's done this kind of stuff. He's involved, I forget, pretty deeply, but I'm not sure if they're engaged or married or whatever, to Shailene Woodley, who has Hollywood cred. He is thinking, he has that California Hollywood look to him too. So for different reasons, and he's already had a better resume. So I don't necessarily see something happening in a place like Tampa, which is a very suburban town. I don't see it happening in New York, because New York's situation right now, honestly, it's in a rebuild. You can't rebuild and pay Aaron Rodgers at the same time, especially with a team in such a bad cap situation that they're in anyway. So I would see West. Vegas, I think, could work. San Fran or LA or Denver. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of those. I would love for him to be in Denver because, oh my goodness, just look at those quarterbacks. If he goes to Denver, that's all I'm saying. Look at that. Carr is not a great quarterback, but he has proven definitively that he is a NFL starter. He's a guy you can build a team around. And then you're talking about Mahomes, Herbert, Rodgers, like that. Just the football that you can watch if you're a fan of those teams. To see those other quarterbacks 6 times a year plus whatever, that's just fun football. So I root for him to go to Denver. But you talk about sloppy seconds. You're still following Manning. So you want to be Brady sloppy seconds or Manning sloppy seconds?
I think enough time has passed on that. Manning's already in the Hall of Fame. It's been a lot of years. I think Denver's okay. It
doesn't feel that long because it's been the last time they were successful. But I hear you. I totally get it.
It's not the rebound in this case. We're using a lot of euphemisms on this show today.
Yes. All right. We're talking about San Francisco. Is it time to talk about the games?
Yes, it is. But I want to start the other way in the Bengals against KC, because if it happened to the top quarterbacks in the league, what's the possibility of it happening to Mahomes as well? And I see the Bengals as a team that can surprise when you least expect it. And KC better be careful. Where do you guys stand? You want to start?
I'll take this one.
You go.
I'm gonna run off this one here. I think the Cinderella season for Cincy is over. I give them a lot of credit on this one. I thought the first game they could win. I did not think they were going to win last week, but if you look at what happened we'll start with Kansas City. That game against the Bills was a game for the unbridled ages. The way that game ended, forget the overtime rules and how they're supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. The lead shift, the scoring on here, everything, the drama of it. This was a game that, people were going to remember for years to come. This is a Chiefs team that is firing on all cylinders. They know their game from getting back into the Super Bowl again. They know what happened last year in the Super Bowl and that loss. And they're going up against a Cincinnati team that this is all new ground for them. They have not had the playoff experience and the AFC Championship experience that Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, and the rest of the Chiefs have had. Now, having said that as well, while, again, massive credit to the Bengals for what they accomplished, that game was as much a Tennessee loss as it was a Bengal win. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 3 interceptions, including one on his first play, and then a drive later inside the Bengal 9-yard line. They opted for whatever reason, and I couldn't believe this decision, where they decided to Tennessee decided to undo their own extra point in order to take a penalty to get half the distance to the goal and try and go for a 2-point conversion in the second quarter. So instead of being up coming back and being up 7-6, they decided to basically try and make it 8-6. And as a result, they didn't succeed and they lost the lead. This kind of stuff boggled my mind. So little decisions like this caused Cincinnati to win a game that Tennessee ended up just as much losing. This is not going to fly in Kansas City. They are not going to make those kind of mistakes. They are not a team that is going to basically do that kind of stuff. And as a result, there is no reason in my mind that I think Kansas City, loses this game. But if you're a Cincy fan, you know what? Be excited. Houday has a great future in the next 5 years.
So I am going to rebut. I apologize, Hobby, but I have to rebut this because I don't know if you have seen the front page of the NFL.com today.
I have not. What do they have going on? I've been on Twitter, but
so on the front page of NFL, it says Cincy 33, Kansas City what? And then they put Los Angeles Rams 24, San Francisco what? Now, if they are seeing something that we are not seeing, I don't know, but it puts you to think that they would add numbers to two very unique games in the front page of the league.
Yeah, it could be buzzy.
First of all, that's not enough points to necessarily mean that Kansas City is not going to win. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take this from a different perspective. I don't know. I don't see how Cincinnati wins this game, mainly because Kansas City is built to stop the pass, and that line is a problem, and Burrow gets sacked a lot. Now, I don't know if it's the line or Burrow. I've been doing a lot of research for 3 weeks since that game to try to determine, do I want to blame Burrow or the line? Because a lot of times sacks are a QB stat, but he's also rushed, hurried a lot, pressured a lot, and that is a line stat. So it's hard for me to fully do that. Chris Jones is the answer in this game. You just watch him all game, and if he's hitting Burrow, I don't think, like Scott said, you're not going to do to Kansas City's offense what you did to Tennessee's offense, which is not take advantage of 9 sacks. If they get sacked 9 times, Kansas City is going to continue to progress further and further into this game. Because one thing I am convinced about is that the Kansas City offense is now right. Whatever that means, they are right. Can Cincinnati keep up? Possibly. That's the answer. Will they? I don't know. What I think is a bigger question about this game, and this goes back to our earlier conversation about Tom Brady. I told you I was getting back to this. The scariest thing the AFC can see is not seeing Joe Burrow commercials. Because I want to see that guy in commercials. Like, I'm telling you, that guy is charismatic. That guy is excited. I want to see him in commercials.
That guy looks like Macaulay Culkin.
What?
You see him side by side. I swear to God, he looks like a Macaulay Culkin. And I've been ostracized for saying this. I see it. But go ahead.
Okay, I'm not going to ostracize you or not because Macaulay Culkin's an actor, and so you're only proving my point. So that's the thing. If you're the AFC and Burrow goes the Brady route and maybe has one national thing to slowly do his pocket, but he's not doing at home with Joe Burrow, taking over all of, like I can imagine at home with Joe Burrow. I now own all of Ohio, that kind of back and forth play. But if you don't see him out there doing commercials and you're in the AFC, you be scared. Whether he wins this week and loses next week, loses this week, wins the next two. If you don't see his face doing commercials, be afraid, be very afraid, because that means he's focused and he is great. I agree with you, though, Scott. I don't think there's enough know-how, both in coaching yet and players understanding and just the makeup of the offensive line to get this team past the Kansas City team that now is totally rolling. The only thing I will say is, as of 2015, when you've lost to a team in the regular season, you lose to them 65% of the time in the postseason if it's only one matchup. That gives Kansas City about only a 16% chance of beating the two games, just purely statistically speaking. And they already won one of them. So it's going to be tough, statistically speaking, for Kansas City to do this. But I unless they're emotionally exhausted from that game, I think they come out here and they are set. They know what they're doing. They know where they're going. Andy Reid and company just gets it done. Patty Mahomes is finding ways to use Pringle and Hartman, even though that Hartman's not what they thought he would be. Even though it looks Hill is a slight step slower, he still had that unbelievable touchdown. I like Kansas City with everything I got in me, and I'm rooting here. You see the colors for the Bengals. I don't think it's going to happen for them.
Yeah.
So now comes the West Coast, and a big game. I don't know. I know both of you guys must be going with San Francisco.
No.
Why? Why are you thinking we're going with San Francisco? I'd like clarification on that point.
Oh, geez. So we are all three on the same boat?
Yeah.
LA to take it?
I'll let you know. I'm just not sure why you were assuming we're San Francisco when LA is definitely the favorite.
Because I think after your commentaries from last week, it gave me a San Francisco vibe.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you on that. I'll eat on that one. So, I mean, here's the thing: San Francisco going into Green Bay, by all accounts, if those two teams played in that situation, 10 times, I think 8 out of those 10 times Green Bay wins that game. It's just sometimes you have bad days. It's a bad situation. Statistically, it blew my mind that they would lose. That San Francisco could actually go in and somehow beat Green Bay on their own home turf. It felt very Giants 2007-2008 season in that regard. I don't see them. I mean, this is the case here. San Francisco has literally won the last 6 matchups against LA, going back to 2019, the last 6 in a row. I don't see it necessarily happening here. I think this is going to be a closer one than the AFC. But, you're dealing with an LA team that, again, went into Tampa and dethroned, and in some ways, maybe in this case, caused Tom Brady and probably Gronk to retire. They can look at this and say, you know what? We made them retire by beating them. They have, I have turned around in a lot of ways on Matt Stafford. Seeing what Stafford has done this season, beating teams, above 500, beating teams five games above 500. He's never done that in his career, and yet did it 3 times this year. So I've turned myself around on that. OBJ is fired up as all hell because that dude knows that this might be the first Super Bowl appearance he has had in his career. He is getting targets. He is in a big market. He is a very LA persona. I mean, it's so perfect for him right now. And between that and between Aaron Donald and everybody else that's involved, I think LA also falls into we have experience in this arena. I think this is going to be a closer one than the AFC matchup will be. But I don't think Garoppolo can match up against, say, Aaron Donald. And I don't think that the secondary of San Francisco can hold up against Matt Stafford, OBJ, and the rest, and Kupp and the rest of them.
So here we go. There's this old line in the NFL. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in the season, which, of course, is complete junk. The reality is if the teams that have won 2 are 14-7 in the third matchup. So it's actually a junk statement. It's a lie. Here's the thing. I think this game is going to be a blowout. I just don't know who's going to win this blowout. I say that honestly. We are either going to see 2 of the same first halves like we saw in the last time they met. Either they are not going to lose in the second half the way they did last week if the Rams get a first half like they did against San Francisco the first time they played, or against the 49ers, against the Tampa the first. They are going to play 2 halves of great football. They're not going to feel that Tom Brady's breathing down their throat. I don't believe that. I believe they now know they can win in any situation. So if they get the lead, I think they're going to keep the lead. I think they're going to crush this team. The problem for them is that Shanahan just knows how to beat McVay's offense. He just does. He knows how to beat his offense. And all too often, when you see a team with a great defense playing a team with a great offense, you go, oh, the team with the great offense is going to have the blowout. But that's not what happens. The team with the great defense causes a turnover on the first drive or the second drive. Then they get a block kick on another drive. And all of a sudden, that defense is putting the ball inside of the opponent's territory. And the other offense that ain't that good with Jimmy G is good enough to take advantage of that. And we get the Baltimore blowout with Detmer as quarterback, because that defense is like, here's the ball on the 30. And the one thing that scares me about the Rams is they are turnover machines. They had 3 turnovers against Tampa Bay. We know that Stafford could turn into a pick 6 type of guy. So I don't know who's going to blow out whom, but I feel like this game is going to be over at the first half. People are going to say, oh, well, the other team. But it's not. The second half is going to be more of the same. That's just my instinct. If you ask me who's going to win, I'm going to go with the 14-7 record and take San Francisco. But I am not putting money on this game at all in any way, shape, or form. Even the 10 cents I usually bet on a game, that's what I bet, just to say I laid my money down, put my money where my mouth is. Not touching this game at all. It is a scary game, and I think it'll be fun to watch for a half, and the second half will be more of whatever the first half is. That is my bold prediction. Huge blowout. Don't know which way.
Fair enough. Cool. Yeah. Eduardo, anything on that?
Geez. I like it. Although I don't like Stafford, I have my issues with Stafford and his inconsistencies. I like LA. I don't know. It's just that unification of that team. It's like they are glued on a purpose all the sudden, and you don't know what they can do and what they can't. It's very, very unreal to think of the Rams at this point, at this stage of the game. I didn't think they were going to make it this far, but they just came and united and are playing very, very consistent football lately. And and I don't see San Francisco. San Francisco came from. I don't see San Fran being a united team. It's like you have some players that, especially in the offensive line, you don't see them being like they are united. You have 2 wide receivers that are fighting to see who is the best and who is going to get the number 1 spot next season. They are not playing for this season; they're playing for next. And that's not what you have to do when you're trying to get to Super Bowl. You don't fight for your job next year. You fight for your job this year. and to try to get to the ultimate package, getting that ring.
So
So I don't
you're
know.
saying you feel like, just so I understand, you think that Cooper Kupp and OBJ are fighting to be the number one wide receiver next year?
Yeah.
Pause. It does tie in a little bit to what I said about OBJ, but
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna take the defense of OBJ. I think OBJ gets a bad rap. I don't think. I think OBJ likes the spotlight. He does, and I think OBJ has some trouble controlling his emotions visually. People can see his emotion. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. I don't feel that OBJ is this team-wrecking diva. I feel OBJ is very happy to be the number 2 wide receiver, as long as the quarterback is throwing to him when he's open at the read that he's open on, and that's what was not happening. He was very happy to go and let Landry be the number 1 wide receiver when he went to Cleveland. They were best buds. So I don't think there's an issue with Kupp. Now, when you bring back Woods next year, if there's 3 wide receivers and he falls to number 3, maybe we have an issue. But look, they won the first game in Cleveland without OBJ. See, OBJ was the problem. No, it wasn't. The rest of the things are right down the toilet. Meanwhile, he came over here. He was better than Woods. And all he did was force you can't double cover Kupp. And I think he's happy. I'm with you, Scott. He loves to be in the big market. Yes. He loves to be seen. Yes. But I think he'll be very happy being the number 2 wide receiver who gets number 2 wide receiver looks on a team with a competent quarterback in a big market where he still gets to shine.
Here's what I want to say to that to a degree. I want to say, yes, he's okay being the number 2 person for now. Because right now, this is all new territory to him too. You know, he struggled, with New York, coming in. Then he went to Cleveland, which is honestly, it's a 7:00 town, basically. And he struggled there. And now at 29, pushing 30 years old, he is seeing real playoffs for the first time and in a big market. Like I said, that's part of the reason why I think it's so perfect for him. Now, having said that, if they go and they win a Super Bowl this year and he tastes all that, and he tastes it again next year as a number 2, is he still going to be okay with that? I mean, he's okay right now because he's getting something cool. But once the newness and the novelty of this wears off, if he is still in the same situation next year, I'm just saying, is he going to be still happy? Or is it going to be something where it's going to piss him off just by virtue of the fact that he's already been down this road before and now he wants bigger than this?
Well, he's on a 1-year deal now, so he may not be back with the Rams next year.
Possibly too.
So if he wins the Super Bowl, I can see him going. So I can see him choosing to go somewhere. I got the Super Bowl, and now I want money again, and I want to be the number 1 wide receiver. I can see him making that choice. Especially, or I can even see him saying, I'll take less money, but I want to stay in Hollywood with the guy we mentioned earlier. Hey, you can't get Devontae Adams because he wants Devontae Adams' money. But how about you and I get together, Rodgers? I'll be your new number 1 wide receiver in Denver, in San Francisco. Can you imagine having him as a number 1 in San Francisco? Debo is a number 2 wide receiver. That's what he is. And then let Debo do all the Debo stuff. Well, you got, I mean, that's a team worth looking at with the defense. So he's got options. Oh, by the way, I'll be the number 1 wide receiver if you come back, Brady. Yeah, you can't, like there are options that he has, conversations he can have as a free agent. So this season, to Eduardo's point, I don't think you have 2 wide receivers playing for the number 1 role. I think you have a wide receiver playing to prove that he is not a problem child, that he's still a great wide receiver, and he's going to be someone you can sign for big money next year, to a 5-year contract. And that's what he's playing like. Very happy and probably wants to win the Super Bowl to get that part over. Because the one thing about OBJ, I can see him being a guy who's happy on a team where he's the number 1 wide receiver, gets national attention, and they're just a playoff team.
So
what about Dallas?
There's no room for him on Dallas right now. Which guy are you gonna let
it out there?
Yeah, I'm just like, which guy are you gonna let go and take OBJ instead?
Sorry, Eduardo, go ahead.
So here comes another question with regards to San Francisco, because if San Francisco doesn't win today, what's the future of Kittle?
The future of whom? I'm sorry,
Kittle.
George Kittle. I don't know. I still think.
Is George Kittle a free agent?
I think he still comes back. I do.
He's a free agent, but the issue is that I didn't see him with the greatest season. The numbers might be there, but what he showed on the field was the attitude in the field wasn't the same as in previous years.
So you think he's getting old, he's getting tired?
Yeah.
So George Kittle looks like he has a contract for $16.1 million next year. So you're asking if the 49ers decide to cut him instead of paying $16.1. I don't know. I still think that when he's healthy, he's one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. Interesting because one of the things we keep talking about is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is not someone who takes advantage of his tight ends immensely. So there's a good reason to think he might be cut. But I think if he gets cut, he lands somewhere for sure. He's not a guy that I think is going to have a problem finding a job. He may not be Kelsey, and he may not be Gronk, and he may not even be Andrews up in Baltimore. But after that, it's hard to say I'm confident in any other tight end over him. There's some guys who are coming up, Hockenson and Pitts, who may be better than him, but they haven't proved it yet. Schultz looks good in Dallas, but I'm telling you, Dallas could get Kittle instead of Schultz. They make that trade in a heartbeat. I think Kittle's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to cut him for 16.1 unless it involves somehow that being the ability to get the quarterback they want, and the quarterback that they want isn't sitting in the stadium right now. I mean, that's the other thing. The 49ers have a top-notch defense. They got Debo. They got a group of running backs. They got Ayuk. I mean, the idea that they're going to get the top-notch quarterback versus keeping Trey Lance, saving that money and putting more money to put weapons around him, like that's where you want to be as an NFL team, that 4-year window with that young quarterback. I don't think Kittle's going anywhere because he fits right into that model of a young quarterback, 4-year window. Let's do it. Especially a quarterback, by the way, who we think we want to see a Patty Mahomes from. And by the way, Patrick Mahomes' favorite weapon is a tight end. I think Kittle's staying. I think Kittle fits right into what they want to do.
And I think I agree on this case. I mean, Kittle is, he has been injured, but he's only 28. So he's still relatively young by NFL standards in that regard. He did have 6 touchdowns in 14 games this year as well, and just shy of 1,000 yards. So it's not like he's completely unproductive. He does have the injuries last year. I get that. But as Obi said, you want to have reliable tools for a young quarterback. And presumably, if this is Garoppolo's last season, in San Fran, he's owed a bunch of money next year too. That's another problem we got to discuss. But assuming that Trey Lance takes over, having Kittle, I think, gives a veteran presence both on and off the field for Lance to be able to give him mentorship, coaching, and development. Yes, it's a lot of money. I'm not going to argue that one, but he has good production numbers and he is a good mentor to a young quarterback. And I think that's the benefit there too.
So guys, we have a couple of minutes, about 5 minutes left. And I think we have to start looking forward at what's coming in with every single team across the NFL, because we know that the two that will fight the Super Bowl will have a lot of cash to do whatever they want after they win, after they go to the Super Bowl, because of their cut from the Super Bowl money. But what happens with the other teams? And let's start your way, Scott, because your team is the one that needs the most help right now.
Well, they got
I was
as I heard it referred to, the Buffalo Giants. You know, they got they got a GM and a head coach, both who came through Buffalo's system there. I think it's a good step in the right direction. They are talking about continuing to try and work with Daniel Jones. He is in that fourth year that Obi mentioned, 4-year quarterback. He is in that fourth season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, which means that people like Russell Wilson, or you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, are not going to happen. That's fine. But I think it is a positive step it is a step in the right direction so far. But we have been burned in New York so many times that it's questionable whether or not this is just going to be another thing that's going to fizzle out and fail. You know, I think it's a good hire. I think they were smart. I think that the Maras and the Dintish listened to the fans and, well, listen to the fan attendance, shall we say, too. And they're trying to right some wrongs here. I think they're in a good direction there, but they have to get that offensive line going. They have to be able to make something happen and be able to fix and protect Daniel Jones. I think they need to use Jones's legs. He's got speed. He has the legs, but last year they were never used. If they can get him running and they can be smart, and Joe Judge did this initially and then just stopped. I think the Giants can be a better team. What this means for a year past this one, who knows? But so far, so good.
So I agree with Scott immensely. I think that the use of Daniel Jones's legs, or the misuse of Daniel Jones's legs with the Giants, was criminal. I think they played with Jones like he was a drop back pocket passer, immobile, and didn't let him see what his legs did. And instead of getting games where he puts up 60 yards and is the team's leading rusher, which is amazing if you could do that when you have a Barkley, they got him stuck in a pocket trying to make passes he can't necessarily make. I was higher on Jones than most people were when that draft started, which is probably I say this every time I say something like that, probably means that Jones was rightly downgraded by everybody else. But I didn't think taking him at 6 was such a horrible move by the Giants. I thought the way that they broadcasted about it was the horrible move, but I digress. You got him. He has fumble problems, and that's real. So that's what has to be worked on. You bring in a coach who knows who had an equivalent style quarterback with Josh Allen. I don't think Jones has Allen's arm strength, but I think he has a better ability to pass accurately than Allen does. So now you have to work on his decision-making and use of his legs. Can it be done? I think so. Is it too little, too late for Jones? Probably. Is there a quarterback in this draft? Matt Corral, I guess, is not the top guy that I want instead of Jones? No. Let me take my chances with Jones. Let me see what happens. I'll certainly be on the lookout for one of these big-name free agent quarterbacks, or I should say even free agents, available quarterbacks. Can they get brought here? What will it cost me? I got 2 first-round picks. You know, I can give up 2 first-round picks for Russell Wilson, by the way, this year. And Jones. I'll give you Daniel Jones to work with in Seattle and 2 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. Thank you very much. Russell, it's going to be a year or two till I get an offensive line to protect you, but do you want to come here? And I think that they do well. I think that they can do well. I think the big thing is, though, can they work with Jones for 1 year? Can they find something in that 1 year that makes it worth signing him to a cheaper quarterback long-term contract? Like that's like, okay, like a Tannehill type deal. Can you get a Tannehill type deal out of him after 1 year of being good? Like, okay, we think you can do this. Here's a mid-range $20 million, $25 million, whatever that's going to be in 2 years based on the cap and everything deal. Will you take that for 4 or 5 years? Because nobody else really wants you. And so that's the Giants' best hope. And then if they do get that kind of deal, then if Tony works out or Slayton continues to improve, if they find a tight end, they draft the running back late when you're supposed to, who they can get a 4 or 5 year run out of. Build the offensive line this year, especially there's a few offensive linemen, including a guy whose name I can't pronounce, Ekwonu, who a lot of people are saying they're going to pick. And Evan Neal, does he drop because somebody jumps up to get a quarterback? There's potential there. if I'm a Giant fan, if I'm Scott, I'm crossing my fingers and chewing my nails at the same time because next year is going to be okay. I'm not confident next year, but I'm really looking for 6 wins next year. Show me improvement, but then is the quarterback good enough? There's a lot of questions, and it's hard to see, not just next year, but the year after. Like, as an Eagles fan, I totally relate because that's where we were this year. Like, is this quarterback good enough? We're still going in next year to say, is this quarterback good enough?
Well, the problem with the Giants is the Giants have no cap space. Gettleman screwed up that team so badly that the team has literally no cap space for next year. So you're getting basically low-end guys to patch this job, which means, unfortunately, patching the offensive line as well. So I don't think next year is going to matter that much, so why not throw Daniel Jones into it? I went with Russell Wilson for a while, but no, I think at the end of the day, you ride out Daniel Jones, you write off 2022, and you build for 2023.
Well, gentlemen, another show has come to an end. It's that time of the day again, and we want to thank our great audience that sees us across the Single TV network on channel 50, across all our social media platforms, from Facebook to Twitter to Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. Remember, we are in 138 platforms around the world. We are viewed in almost 122 countries around the world through the Single Network. And we hope to have you here next Sunday when we preview the game of the year. And in the name
Pro
of
Bowl. You're talking about the Pro Bowl.
In the name of Mr. O.B. Spencer and Mr. Scott Churchson, my name is Eduardo Harari. This has been another edition of the NFL Insiders. We hope to see you, as I said, next week Sunday. And until then, we wish you the best. And please remain at home. Please remain in safety during these pandemic times of COVID-19. Until then, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.